let them talk if they want to.
And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. We have a very interesting show. Jewel Miller, who's the mother of Legacy Garner, who is Eric Garner's youngest daughter, 1 year old. She just had her 1 year birthday, and she has come all the way from Staten Island on the boat, all the way from the island, to come visit us here on the other island, Manhattan, and talk about her situation and the tragedy of having to face, life without a man you loved, and to be able to have to explain that to your child as she grows older. How do you think of that? How are you going to explain that to Legacy when she gets old enough to ask what happened to Daddy and what happened?
That's really a good question. I've been faced with that very often, and I'm really going to be honest with Legacy and teach her what is going on in America, and explain to her that her father was a precious lamb, and I believe he was sacrificed for a greater good. A lot is going to come out of him leaving us.
And what do you think is what would you hope to come out?
Really change in America with the NYPD, the way they police us black and brown people in our community. It is horrible the way we are stereotyped and looked down upon. Stop and frisk. Come on, it's all over our neighborhoods and our community.
Has it gotten better since then as far as the stop and frisk? Has they backed off from it?
I think they played it down after Eric's death, after his murder. I think they played it down for a little while and kind of said, well, we're not going to bother them right now until this blows over.
I think it might be difficult for a lot of people, in New York City, in the United States, really, and all over the world, to understand why the police would use such force that could lead to somebody's death in a situation where the alleged crime, if you can call it that, was allegedly, we're not even saying it happened, but allegedly selling Lucy cigarettes, which Eric is heard himself denying he was even doing.
Yes.
How is that possible? How do you explain that to the rest of America, that somebody could, lose their life over something so petty?
It is unexplainable. It's been almost a year and about 10 days, and there are no answers. There. I've been searching for them, and I haven't found one.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, about where you were born, where you grew up, and how you met Eric, and all those kind of things.
Staten Island resident, born and raised all my life. I met Eric actually on Victory and Bay Street, looking for directions. I was new to that area, and we were real good friends for about a year and a half, and then we decided to proceed into a relationship.
What was it about him that you found attractive? What was it about his personality and about?
He was a bear. I mean, you gotta love Eric. He was a sweetheart. He was a real good, caring person. And I know everyone says, "Oh, he's a gentle giant," but it is so true. He just really was a kind man.
He was well known in the community.
Well known in the community. People loved Eric. He'll feed everybody, jokes all the time. Really good to my children. I have 4 other children, and he helped raise them for, the 3.5 years.
So you're missing a father figure for your whole family now.
Oh, yeah. It's really been tough for them, too. Not having him around, and everything that's going on, they lost very. How
did that day, I'm sorry to make you relive such a horrible experience, but I think it's good for people to hear this. How did that day, the day that Eric lost his life, how did that play out for you? How did that develop? I mean, what were you doing that day? How did you hear about it, and how did you react? What happened?
I received a phone call from someone down a friend of ours called me and said someone choked out Eric, and I was like, Eric? My Eric? I really couldn't believe it. I'm like, why? Because he isn't violent. He would have gone willingly, So I couldn't believe it. I called his sister and I spoke with her, and she was sobbing at the time, and we didn't know, that he was gone at the time. We just thought maybe, he had an asthma attack or it was something, but...
Where did you go? Like, did you go down to the hospital or to the police precinct?
I was waiting for kids to come home. People started showing up to my home. I wasn't able to move for a while. I didn't go to Victory Bay until that night. I had to touch the ground.
Did you see the video of Officer
Yes.
Pantaleo?
Yes.
Doing that? Did you saw the video that day?
No, I didn't see the video until 5 months later.
Right. Was that a decision on your part not to
Yes.
see it?
Yes.
Understandable.
Just the show that it was on every station. They kept playing it. We unplugged the TVs in my home. We couldn't watch it. So 5 months later, I decided to watch it, and that's when it really became angry. I couldn't believe. I read the papers and I heard people talking about the way they took him down, but to actually watch the tape and for them to not have any compassion. The EMS workers also, the way they responded, it just was like, I couldn't believe what I was watching by the people that are supposed to protect us. It was almost unreal.
Mm-hmm. They would take the EMS take the lead from the police. So how are the police?
That's what I figured. I said, what
Yeah.
did they say? Listen, we got a dead body here. Just act like this is, he's breathing. And I didn't understand that. When you're an EMS worker, you're trained to know that someone is not responsive, someone is gone.
Right. So they were going through the motions of trying to bring him back when they
Yes, and they didn't go through the motions of trying to bring him back. She touched his body part and said, hey, can you breathe? Are you okay, buddy? She didn't try to do anything to, revive him or nothing. The bag wasn't even dropped, and, nothing happened in regards to save his life.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the situation that people of color face in your neighborhood in Staten Island with the police. I mean, in a way, was this totally surprising that a policeman would attract? I grew up in a white neighborhood in Yonkers, New York. Never such a thing would ever have happened. However, to see in an African American community that this happens is, if it's not a taste of something, there's a disconnect there, and there's two different worlds here we're talking about, then you're on a different planet if you don't see that, if you know what I mean. And so can you tell me what it's like to be a person of color dealing with the New York City Police Department in Staten Island in your community? I mean, before this even happened, I mean.
Staten Island is the most racist borough. I lived there from a toddler, and just living on one side of the island and visiting the other side of the island, you can tell from those stores, from the way you're treated. They don't care about us on the other side of the island at all. At all. Our barbecues, we have to be out the park at dusk. At a park. Our community is so small, especially in the housing development areas. 1,000 people live in the New York City projects. And if you can imagine a project building, everything is so confounded. Mm-hmm. So where are the families supposed to go if they have to be out of their park at dusk? It isn't fair. They can't barbecue there.
Mm-hmm. So you're not treated as if people of color in Staten Island are not treated as if they're equal citizens.
No.
Right. And what is the stop and frisk situation? How was it like then, and how has it changed since Eric's death?
I think since Eric's death it slowed down, but I think it only slowed down to say, all right, we made a big screw up here. Mm-hmm. We're gonna just slow down a little bit. We have all kind of people screaming Black Lives Matter right now, and I don't even like how they changed that over to All Lives Matter, just to change the topic. All lives do matter, we know that, but only black and brown lives are being murdered and being slaughtered and being lynched every day. So it's a big issue. Mm-hmm. It's a big issue.
It still is.
Still is.
Right. And you know, the officers. What in the end happened with they were not indicted. None of them were indicted. There was no indictments at all, were there?
No.
None. And were you surprised that the district attorney of Staten Island did not bring indictments? You know, because as we all know, a district attorney can indict a ham sandwich. Is the old saying, right? So, if there was no indictments, that's because they didn't want any indictments.
Mm-hmm.
Were you surprised by that?
No.
So did you expect justice at all from the grand jury process?
I'm like, come on, when are they going to wake up? Like, when are they really going to be accountable for their actions? This was a horrible, horrible tragedy. They lynched Eric on Victory and Bay Street, you know, and left him there. And, cuffed. You know, now that I'm replaying the video in my head, like, cuffed, he laid there dead, you know? How could they not bring justice to their era? You know, at least one time say, listen, guys, we screwed up. For him to be on death duty, Father's Day passed, it's 1 year. No accountability, no justice on Staten Island. Where do we go from here? I say justice or else, you know.
Is there going to be, there was an attempt to try and get the grand jury proceedings made public. Did that ever happen?
No.
And is that still going? Is that an ongoing thing, or
people are still fighting for it? You know, we're still fighting to get the grand jury released. Mm-hmm. We want those minutes. We need those minutes.
Do you have any hope that they might in the future release those, or is it up in the air?
I don't know. It may be some leaks in about 3 years, 5 years or so. I don't see it coming anytime soon.
We have a new mayor. Do you see any changes as far as the way New York City is run? Because I mean, Staten Island, it's its own thing, but at the same time, it's part of the 5 boroughs of New York City and has the same mayor.
You wouldn't think so. Staten Island runs Staten Island, mm-hmm. and I'm born and raised there.
Yeah.
Staten Island runs Staten Island. There's no it's nothing like any other borough.
What do you think needs to be done? Is there any attempt? Is there going to be a federal investigation of any sort, or civil rights, or anything like that?
I heard of some. Right. You know, I don't have too much knowledge about what's going on, but I heard there is an investigation going on. I want to see what the feds come back and say. Mm-hmm.
And so that really, that leaves the victim, any victim in this circumstance, in the situation of trying to get it's not getting to sue and to get, even if you get money, even if you get a lot of money, it's not justice.
Fuck that money.
Yeah, it's not justice either.
There's no justice in that money.
It's not, because the officer doesn't go on his record that he did anything wrong. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All it is like, here, have some money, in regards to a beloved, father and husband who's, boyfriend is dead.
Right. A life that we could never get back, and that's one thing about settlements. And everyone says, oh, don't talk settlements, lawyers are going to be pissed with me, but I don't care. They didn't know Eric. I did. His family too. I love them, and we'll all stand on one accord one day. We may not agree today, but that settlement is
How has the media been treating you? The other media, not just WBAI or MNN or something like that, but how is the Daily News and New York Post, New York Times, how have they been treating this? I
didn't do too much talking. I mean, the Daily News kind of did blotch me a little bit, but it was facts. Everything that they posted was actually real. They kind of just didn't use my sweetness about it. They just kind of made it raunchy.
I see.
But it's the raunchy truth. It's the legacy he left, the good, bad, and the ugly. Mm-hmm. So, but other than that, I don't really do too much mass media at all.
Mm-hmm. It was recently, and is that a personal decision?
Yes,
or? Yep.
Yes, personal decision. I have a little child that is, I just kind of didn't want exposed to all of the
Let's talk about your daughter, Legacy, and Eric's daughter, Legacy. She just turned 1, right?
Yes.
It was her birthday Sunday, right?
April 13th.
Tell me about I missed the birthday. Tell me about the birthday party.
Oh, it was awesome. Family and friends got together and celebrated. her 1 year. She was born 2 pounds 1 ounce. So it was really kind of good to see, people come out. Some people from the movement also joined in. So it was a really good time for us to just sit down and, hug her up and love her up and see what she's doing. So
Her sisters and brothers come by too as well?
Yeah, her sisters and brothers, everyone was there.
You have a big family now, right?
Yeah,
You got
yeah.
4,
I have
she's
5.
got others, 5 with her, and then you have others as well, and so that's a big crowd. So what tell us what, did you have a cake?
We had cake. She had bikes and toys. She got 2 bikes. We actually gave one away, to a family that's been supporting us for a while. And we just thought it would be a nice gesture too. She had 2 bikes. What is she going to do? We just gave one back.
How about the community reaction? Has there been a support? Have you felt that there's folks out there who have felt that, support of what you were doing? And I know the Black Lives Matter movement was, all over the country, around the world.
Came out and rallied behind justice for Eric Garner. So shout out to them. They've been hitting the streets and online and just doing everything, that's shutting train stations down.
It's like an international movement, really. It's all over the world, right?
Yeah, it is international. And I thank God, just for awareness, for people to be aware that Black and brown lives do matter. It was really good to see that.
So, coming back to the horrors of that day, tell us a little bit about, according to the story that's been in the newspapers, the police side of the story, right? Eric had been selling Lucy cigarettes, or had been repeatedly arrested, but then when the alleged arrest list comes out, it's very minor, nothing type of things, right? And again, coming to this issue of how minor things that would never amount to anything in any other community, in Staten Island, in your community, African American community, become horrific reasons to kill. What is really going on behind there? We had a guest just before, at this point actually when we show this, it'll be last week, who's talking about the rise of Nazism in Europe in the 1930s and the horrors that happened there. And do you see that sort of political, like this is a almost like a fascist type of thing that's happening,
Yes, I do. I believe
it's similar to what's going on down in South Carolina, and
all these churches. How
right, the flag, the 9 people were killed.
The Confederate flag, I think it should have never been up at all.
Right.
At all, it should have never been up. So yeah, shout out to the girl that pulled it down and said no more. Way to go, sis. Again, someone went into this church. This guy went and shot 9 people in this church, and they put a bulletproof vest on him. I couldn't believe it.
To protect him.
You're protecting this guy. And then they raised, I don't know how many of $1,000 for his bail.
I heard several million were raised.
Oh, I had to stop reading. How could that be possible?
What's going on in the United States? What's it like to be a person of color in the United States today? It's almost like there's a crosshairs, and you wonder why. Well, anyway, we won't try and figure that out because it's maybe at a higher pay level than myself to figure it out. But we know it exists. What do we do about it? You're a housewife, a mother, someone's raising children. Now you've been, catapulted into this as a symbol, really, in a lot of ways. How do you feel? One day you're a housewife, the next day you're a symbol for millions of people around the world.
Very, very challenging. Very challenging. For the first 5-6 months, I was just numb to his demise, to his, I just couldn't even form words or to talk. It's hard now, really speaking about it.
I bet.
But where are we gonna go from here?
What do you think? How about the president? Do you think the president has made not done enough?
Again, the president.
And this is at that level.
President.
This story.
He's at that level,
right. But it's. What happened to Eric and the experience you're at is this has gone beyond just a city level. This has gone beyond Staten Island, New York City, New York State. This is a national event where the president of the United States is,
But I think the president is also He's got to get the say so from a bunch of other constituents before he could say this happens.
Right.
So yeah, we have a black president. Kudos, we did accomplish that, but he still ran by them, and I know that. You know, I voted for Barack, of course, but he still ran by them, and he can't do anything without their say. I don't care how much he's the president, and he can. I know better. Eric Garner is dead July 17th, murdered by people that he employs. That, this is his country. You're the president. I'm expecting you to say something. If you got to come down from Washington to the 120, that's what you should have done. We're your people.
Has he said anything specifically about Eric, President Obama?
Not anything that is substantial that I would.
He hasn't directly addressed it. How about the mayor, Mayor de Blasio? Let's bring it down to his level. Has he said anything? Has he met with you? He
hasn't met with me, but I do believe he's met with other family members. But look, we're still here, and there's no indictment, and Pantaleo was home.
Yeah. And do you think what happened? Is Pantaleo still on the force? He had to resign,
yes.
right?
Oh,
is he still
I think he's on desk duty.
So he could actually one day return to the beat, right?
Yeah.
If they think that it's cooled out enough.
In Staten Island.
Yeah.
So they kind of do what they want on Staten Island.
That seems obvious. Why do you stay there?
I'm actually in the process of moving. Difficult. Born and raised on Staten Island. Families on Staten Island.
It's hard to make that leap, right?
It's hard to make that leap, but I will be moving shortly. I'm not even happy at home. It's definitely a difference. I live not too far from Victorine Bay, so it's tough, It's
to
tough.
walk on that corner and to see that street.
And I'm always there. Some days I just have to. I have to go get a coffee. I have to go.
Right.
Walk by there. But the 1 year anniversary is coming up.
Right.
July 17th.
Yeah. Tell us what's happening on the 17th.
Well, Legacy will be releasing a white dove at 11 a.m. For the 11th time. Her father said he couldn't breathe. And after that, we're going to go back with a small, selected amount of people and have a barbecue. And at sunset, we'll just light up an Pacific area, in his memory. And
right.
that'll be the day. But all across Staten Island, Brooklyn, Coney Island, a couple of other boroughs will all be standing in solidarity with us. So I'll be on Staten Island, but other family members would be.
Do you think there'll be protests on that day, in the same type that were last year?
I don't think on that day. I did hear about one. I don't kind of know who's organizing that, but I'm not marching on the 17th. I kind of just want to take a moment.
It's a family day, really.
Yeah, it's a family day. I'm not doing any walking. I think I've walked a lot. I'm at the point, it's justice or else at this point. I'm not really.
Did you participate in some of the protests and demonstrations?
Yes.
Tell me
I've
about
been to just about all of them.
Really? How was that like? What was that like?
Oh man, with the police, downtown marches were really tough. But it did bring it did strengthen me a little bit. I kind of felt, the love of the people. Standing, out there chanting, Black Lives Matter and justice for Eric and justice for Akai Gurley and justice for Sean Bell. So many other lives that it just all formulated, it all kind of fit, Do
you think something, nothing good could ever come from a tragedy like that, but on the other hand, it's possible that lessons might be learned, at least by the community, and people might be brought together and unified in a certain way. Do you think that has been a positive development of this tragic situation?
I think on a low scale it has. Not on a high scale, but on a low scale it has. It has brought a lot of people, to put awareness to a lot of people. Not too much significant change yet, but awareness it did bring. I do see, especially in the area in which I live in, there are some, Caucasian people that live there, even some Chinese people that live there, and you see them now, good morning, where 3 years ago and 4 years ago, they were kind of distant, but in the community you see them now, coming out a little more. So I see, I see small change.
Right, so people feel like maybe that that when a community isn't talking and doesn't communicate and allows, just goes about their lives into their separate worlds, that leaves a lot of room for tragedy to happen, right? As we see that, and what happened, and nobody was there. More people should have been there. The police should not have felt freedom to operate in the way that they did. And there was something about the way they operated, the way they swarmed Eric, the way they took him down.
Well, that was harassment. That was long time coming. I lived with Eric, and I lived together 3.5 years. And like, they harassed Eric, path mark, like, I don't care where we were, check cashing, anywhere we were, they would pull us over, and they would harass him. They'll walk by him on Victory and Bay, be like, "We bought some Marlboros. Like, what do you got?" We're like,
what is it that he was doing that they hated so much? I mean, why did they harass him? Because why did they choose him to harass?
I believe again, they wanted to clean up Victory and Bay Street, and the big Victory and Bay is going to be a big attraction. They have the nice Ferris wheel coming up. They have some new developments coming up. Eric wasn't Gotti, okay, but what was done to him wasn't anywhere near deserving. So, but they tried to clean it up, and they didn't think that they could. So I really think that, that's why they went so hard to kill him. They wanted to take him out.
And so to get rid of him from that street, because that's where his place was. I live in the East Village, man. My place is on Avenue A. We all in New York City used to be like that. Where you had your place. Nobody knew where you were and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was what made it a community.
Right. But he broke up like 2 fights that day, like all the time.
There was a fight earlier.
There was a fight with some people in the neighborhood. Some people in the park, and that was another thing. There's a lot of drunks that live there or hang out there, and they all know Eric, and he's like, guys, like, come on, like, let's chill out, it's hot, so that was kind of always his thing. Everyone knew, all right, they'll fuss him out for a little while, he'll buy them a water, tell them to cool out. So I was kind of like, yo, like, you really took a good guy away. He'll feed them, like, all right, enough of the beer, eat this piece of bread or get this rice and beans from the store, like, he was just that kind of guy. But
Jewel Miller, thank you so much. We're just wrapping up right here. Any last words you have to say for people who come out on the 17th?
Definitely. July 17th, come stand in solidarity with us. Support Legacy, Justice for Eric. Just come out and stand in solidarity with us.
And we will. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
and we'll see you
me.
again next week. Thank you very much for joining us on Let Them Talk.
Okay.